A strangely familiar totem, decorated with a deer skull, had been placed at the edge of the woods, spreading a pungent stench throughout the clearing.
What an awful smell! What could be the purpose of such a thing?
The small creature said, while looking at the Alva, who desperately tried to cover her nose. As the creature touched the pungent-smelling horn, it crumbled, turning to dust in its hands. Growing along the edge of the clearing were an odd strain of plants, emitting a soothing glow from their bright buds.
This light, how do you think something like this comes to be?
The creature asked the Alva, who was leaning forward in an attempt to inspect the peculiar plant. As the creature poked the stem of the plant, the bud started to pulsate, as if aggravated by the faint touch. Partially hidden within the undergrowth, there was an old, scarcely decorated gravestone.
It doesn't look like anyone's been here in a very long time. Do you think they got lost on their way here?
The creature turned to its friend, who was tilting her head to have a closer look. The creature began to brush away the dirt from the gravestone, but it didn't appear as if there had been a name inscribed on it. A mysterious plant had come into bloom and was now spreading its spores throughout the forest.
So this is what they will look like when they grow up,
the small creature said to the Alva, as it pointed at the smaller plants surrounding the larger one. When the creature brought its hand closer to the plant, it suddenly released glowing spores into the air. As they landed on the creature's hand, a strange numbness came over the affected skin. A shadowy figure had begun to follow the pair as they traversed the narrow trail, yet for the moment keeping its distance from the small creature.
Why is it following us?
The creature whispered, while the Alva kept her eyes peeled on the dark shape remaining at their backs. As the creature moved closer, the being quickly disappeared into the shadows. The dark woods, far too dense to travel through, were slowly encroaching on the clearing.
Not even someone as small as you would fit through that thick web of branches,
the small creature said to the Alva as it peeked into the dark entanglement. The creature attempted to force its way through the woods, but gave up as it didn't have the strength to break the tough branches.
This place has an unsettling feeling to it,
the small creature whispered as they walked through the abandoned encampment.
Why did they leave all of their belongings behind?
A ragged piece of cloth held up by a pair of sticks formed what appeared to be a tent.
Looks cozy enough.
the creature said as it inspected the tiny sleeping area. Inside the tent, the creature found a thin, slightly bent metal blade. One of the tents had at some point collapsed and was laying in the wet grass at the edge of the campsite.
How sad. This was someone's home once.
The creature said as it looked down at the wet mass laying on the ground. The creature picked up the cloth canvas, along with the partially corroded iron post. An ancient tree was standing by itself at the far edge of the encampment. Throughout the land, you might sometimes hear rumors of injured woodsmen sheltering themselves beneath an unusually large tree with strange characteristics. As they rest amongst its roots, they claim that the wounds fade away as if they had never been caused. Learning that one may be cured from any ailment by crawling through the tree's roots, many travel from afar to seek relief, but the woodsmen who claim to have found it never seem to recall its exact location within the woods.
Hello? Would you mind talking to us for a short while?
The ancient tree barely seemed coherent, the lucidity in his eyes fading between each word.
So tired, must not fall asleep. Help!
What should we do? He seems really scared.
The small creature looked at the Alva.
We need to help wake him up.
While moving its hand across the aged bark, the creature felt an odd sense of relaxation. Growing along the edge of the clearing were an odd strain of plants, emitting a soothing glow from their bright buds. The fire had long since burned out.
We could sure use a warm fire right now.
The creature said, looking at the shivering Alva. As the creature rustled around in the ashes beneath the coals, it found a sooty horseshoe forged from steel. A statue depicting an ominous creature was standing near the tree line.
These statues must mean something.
The creature said to the Alva, who was peeking out from behind its ear to have a look. The statue was cold to the touch, apart from the area surrounding a small carving on its base. Beside one of the tents stood a poultry meat rack, created from 2 carved poles connected by a long string.
They must have really been in a hurry to leave their food behind.
The small creature said to its friend as it gave the meat a poke with its finger. The small creature picked up the smelly haunch of meat. As the creature blew the smelling salt onto the ancient tree, he quickly recovered from his drowsiness.
Thank you.
He exclaimed in a drawn-out fashion, both eyes wide open.
Thank you both. I almost fell asleep, you know, just like my brothers. You mustn't.
The ancient tree's voice turned mellow as he looked out across the campsite.
None of them wanted to talk to me, so I simply remained silent. Suddenly, it almost took me, the glow. Almost, but you made sure it didn't. That would have been bad, very bad indeed.
The ancient tree sighed.
I wish I could repay you, but unless you're in need of herbal knowledge, I'm afraid I can't offer you much in return. If you should happen to find any herbs you would like me to process, I'd be happy to help,
he said before munching enthusiastically.
Although I would need to rinse this horrible taste from my mouth before I could create a proper mixture. If you're in need of my help, could I first trouble you to find me something scrumptious that will restore my taste buds?
An unfinished totem had been placed at the center of 3 large stones, decorated by various rune carvings.
It looks like it's missing something, doesn't it?
The creature said as the pair beheld the strange creation. The totem was firmly stuck in the stone slab beneath it. Despite the weather, the large anthill was bustling with activity.
You work hard, don't you?
The small creature said, as the pair watched the ants carry all manner of things into their home. The ants didn't seem to mind the creature picking up a handful of the leftover straws. Glowson, vile and repugnant, is a large sow that dwells in the depths of the forest, her battened body covered in razor-sharp thorns. She may appear either as an omen in places about to be visited by great misfortune, or to prey on travelers walking along the forest's edge. As she runs towards her victim, the thorns on her back are said to grow larger, cutting the unlucky traveler in half as she sprints in between their legs. After she has satisfied her gluttonous urges, she returns to guard her home in the darkest part of the woods.
Hello? We don't mean you any harm. Can you help us?
Glowson's red eye followed the creature's movements, her mouth watering in response to the feast presenting itself before her.
Never mind. We will get by somehow.
The creature stuttered as it quickly backed away from the huge beast.
What do you suppose that thing is over there? Do you see it?
The creature asked the Alva, who was leaning forward in an attempt to spot the small object.
Hello!
The creature quickly took a step back, surprised by the mangy arm that had suddenly appeared from below the cliff. A Draug was once a man who, after passing from this world, turned into a being consumed by its hunger for all that it once had. Approaching its perceived property carries with it great risks, as stories tell of Drauga whose grotesque appearance leaves the victim's mind in disarray, causing them to wander the woods aimlessly as they slowly transform into Drauga themselves.
Hello? Are you down there? Could you perhaps let us look at the flower on the ground? It might be something very helpful to us.
The creature tried, but the arm remained. The large arm was greedily warding off the small creature's attempt to grab the delicate-looking plant. An iron chain had been fastened to a pole at the edge of the woods, dwindling down into the darkness below the cliff's edge.
The post must be buried very deep in the ground to be able to hold something like that.
The creature thought to itself as it glanced down the cliff. The creature rustled the chain, and soon after, a fierce snarl echoed from the darkness below. A gleaming blade had been left stuck in the ground, not far from the edge of the cliff.
It looks like it was once part of some sort of tool,
the creature said as it watched the light bounce off the metal. The creature didn't have any trouble pulling the thin blade from the moist soil. A totem, crudely decorated with bone carvings and various symbols, had been struck into the ground, steadied by a pile of rubble.
another one of those strange things. I wonder why they were put here.
The creature pondered, while the Alva seemed to appreciate the odd craftsmanship. As they approached it, the Alva's eyes fixed on a particular part of the totem.
Do you like this one?
The creature asked, removing the blunt piece of flint from the totem. The woods ended abruptly as parts of the ground had at some point plummeted into the darkness below.
I can't see what's below us, although I don't think I could get us down there safely anyway,
the creature said, while shaking its tiny head. The creature peeked across the edge of the cliff, but the starlight didn't quite make its way to the bottom.